We're glad to be back on Mastering Counseling again, and we are really thrilled to hear from Priscilla Rodriguez this morning. And she is based out of Texas, is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and also the owner of Modern Wellness Counseling. Thanks so much for being here this morning, Priscilla.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Why don't you go ahead and talk to us about what inspired you beginning Modern Wellness Counseling?
Yeah, so I'm sure as many therapists after grad school go into some sort of agency job, it was during that time frame that I wanted to kind of get my own schedule. We had to do a lot of on call. It was really tough on just me, my personal life. So I was like, you know what, something needs to change, right? So I really was already striving to have private be my end goal in graduate school. So I kind of figured, you know what, let me just kind of get started. It was my supervisor actually who encouraged me to, she was like, hey, you know what, just go ahead and get it. In Texas, you could, at the time, you could be an associate and start a private practice. So that's kind of, she kind of pushed me into that track. And it was super helpful because it gave me an opportunity to learn some of the business side, which obviously we did not learn in graduate school. Once I became fully licensed, I was able to leave and do my private practice full time.
All right. And can you give us a little bit of a time frame on when that was? How long ago?
Yeah. So I started in 2016 is when I first started. I graduated graduate school in 2015. So in 2016, that's when I started kind of just doing a couple of hours here and there. And then I left full time in 2018.
All right. That's awesome. I love that. And it was what I kind of heard you say is you kind of had that security of learning and someone encouraging you
Hmm.
before branching out on your own. And that's just always must be nice to phase into it for sure,
Well,
especially with the business part, which I know we will talk about as well. Let's one thing that stands out about your practice and that you guys express on your website is lower clients that you will take, but
mhm.
kind of a higher volume of care.
Right.
So how did you come to follow that model and what benefits are you seeing?
Yeah. So it started off with first myself. So as a solo practice owner, everyone says you gotta find your niche, right? Like really focus in on something that you love. For me, that was relationships and working with couples, especially couples at the early stages of their relationship. So I found that to be really helpful. So when I started to branch out to, okay, let me do a group practice, I honestly I was a little scared to think of having other clinicians who were doing just everything and anything, right? So I think that's kind of where that came from is this piece of, okay, like if I'm going to bring on clinicians, I want them to know what they're doing. I want them to really be focusing in on something that they enjoy because I don't want to just be taking everyone on any client that calls and say like, oh yeah, we can just pair you up with so and so with myself and it'd be a good fit. So I think it really came down to first the clinician's care and kind of like what's going to be helpful for myself and the other clinicians in the group. And then obviously how that translates into a client's progress because then they know, oh yeah, my clinician knows exactly what they're doing. I feel cared for. I know, I'm not having to just be bumped off a call because I'm just a number on a spreadsheet kind of thing. It's kind of this part of like, oh, I know I can rely on my clinician to give me that time and also have the mental capacity to do so.
Mhm. No, that's awesome, right? We all love going to certain types of stores or places or boutiques where even if you're shopping, you feel like, oh, someone sees me or they want
Yeah.
to help. And so lower numbers is a good thing. I noticed that you have multiple clinicians beside yourself. From 2016 to now, how has that worked out how did you know when to add more or a
Mhm.
certain type of clinician?
So I started my group practice in 2021, beginning of early 2021, end of 2020. I just was my schedule was booked and I was having to refer out
Mhm.
constantly. So I kind of figured, you know what, like this could be an opportunity for me to try it out. So I brought one clinician on, and she was great. She's no longer in my practice because she actually moved to another country. At the time, she was like, I also have a friend who may be interested. So sure, let's kind of bring her on. So that's how it kind of like slowly grew. And then at the time, she, well, we were just slowly kind of building as her caseload was filling up. Once it got to about halfway, that's when I started looking for another clinician. So that's kind of how I do that. Is like once a clinician's caseload is like about halfway filled, that's when I started looking for someone else. That way it can slowly be building, and we're not having to scrounge like, okay, now I have to do a wait list and now we have to do this, right? So that's kind of how I decided to slowly add on clinicians.
Okay, thank you for breaking
Mhm.
that down. That's good to hear too. Like once they filled up halfway, you were looking ahead. So sounds like
Mhm.
really good planning. Let's kind of talk about the type of counseling that you guys offer. I saw a lot of different types of relationship counseling, premarital, and then you specifically with a focus on an emotional approach. So let's get
Yeah.
into the real details of the exact type of people that you would most be able to help.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, a lot of couples. We really enjoy working with couples who have either experienced infidelity or experienced communication issues, some sort of betrayal. So we know that betrayal can look in a lot of different forms outside of just infidelity. And when it comes to emotionally focused therapy approach, like that is sort of learning how to do couples work, even individual counseling, right? It's attachment focused. So I have an extended training in EFT, and that has been just like my passion. Whenever I utilize EFT, I kind of just, it's easier to work with a variety of clients. So whether they're military, we live in San Antonio, or I live in San Antonio. So before I branched it online, we had a lot of military couples. So that's kind of where I was like, okay, how do I apply EFT to military couples as well as this piece of premarital? So I just love the fact that I can work with any kind of couple and know, okay, what's the attachment, what's the hurt place, like how can we kind of feel that part and work from there. Even when I work with my individual clients, it always comes down to some sort of relational aspect. At the end of the day, is kind of the root, even if it's a relationship with themselves. So some maybe you saw that as well whenever I talk about it's not just a relationship with the people outside of you, but it's also with yourself too, like self-love and self-compassion.
Hmm. No, that's great. I'm always a huge proponent of premarital counseling, which people don't do, but I think maybe they're doing a little bit more as maybe they've
Mhm.
had some therapy or help for themselves. And now
Yeah.
they're about to jump into the biggest commitment of their life and they see the need and value of that. So I love to hear that you're doing that.
Mhm.
And you mentioned San Antonio, and I think one thing about your practice as well that I saw on your website is you guys are still focused only on Texas. Any reasoning for that, or any specialties of being able to practice in Texas that you want to share? Because we have all different people who listen, and I always love hearing about the differences in states. So,
Yeah, yeah. To be honest, I'm hoping to branch out on Texas, but at the moment, this is just like where all of our license is at, all our licenses are at. So, and as you know, like Texas is a big state, so we haven't really had any issues with trying to get specific, any type of client, right, where it comes to there being like a need. And there's a lot of areas where kind of like rural or maybe not where people like don't have like certain like specialties, like for example, like an EFT focused approach, right? And maybe they're looking for that. So I have worked with some couples where maybe they're in a place where it's like, hey, you know what, I can't find someone in my area who have like a good fit with, right? So
Mhm.
going online is something that has been very helpful for them. And I think that has been like our focus is that, yeah, we can reach just about anyone in this state. So that has
Yeah.
been helpful too, but definitely wanting to branch out into other states as well. when it comes to like expanding for other clinicians.
Mm.
But again, it kind of is just dependent on the other clinicians like wanting more clients or not. Because like maybe some practices where the owner says like, okay, if you're going to join the practice, you have to have 30 sessions, right? I ask my clinicians, how many sessions do you want? Because it has to match their life. And I can't just go in and say, well, I don't want to go in and say like, you're going to do X amount of number,
Yeah.
right? So it really is just dependent on the other clinician as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's never, I mean, it happens so often in people's work where they are forced, but it
Mhm.
just never goes as well, especially in
Right.
these type of settings.
Yeah.
The people definitely have to want to do that. So I know you do a ton online. Are you exclusively online? Were you always only online? I don't think you were. Let's just
Mm-mm.
talk about that shift a little bit too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was doing in person primarily when I first started. And then I took a training prior to me leaving my agency job to do online as well. So back in like 2018, I was also doing some virtual sessions, but I also got an office and was seeing people in person. COVID hit, and I'm sure like there's many clinicians, we all kind of just like shifted online for a little bit, and then I just stayed there. I did see a couple of sessions, still in person after it was like safe to leave your house. But even then, it was just clients that I was already seeing were like, you know what, I like the online part. I don't have to worry about traffic. There's random construction here in San Antonio. So like that was always like an issue too of me having to adjust my schedule because someone was running late or, just having to completely cancel. So when it came to continuity of care, the online piece just made more sense. And then it's exclusive online by the time I started a group practice. So then everyone who has joined has been online.
Okay. All right. I love that. And just a thought that came to me in that you're helping a lot of military families with you being online. If someone is deployed or
Mhm.
has to be at training across the country or even across the world, are you able to continue the counseling
Mhm.
when people have to be away?
Mhm. We are. It is dependent on the person who is being deployed, right? They have to like we do have to get like a letter just for in the case something were to happen kind of thing. But many times it's this piece of whether or not they want to be continuing services while they're out, and because they are military, it's very different than kind of saying like, oh yeah, my client moved to California, and now I'm just gonna see them over there, right? Not get a
Yeah.
like you just have to like get some permission. So, but it is a little bit easier when it comes to military.
Yeah. No, that's great. I was just around someone who's experienced some things in the military on the negative end. And so it's just
Yeah.
thinking of being able to help, there's so much trauma that can come back from
Hmm.
being away and especially seeing all the horrible things around the world. So for someone to be
Yeah.
able to help in that environment is so
Hmm.
great. Someone that maybe they'd already built a trust with in
Right.
Texas.
And we also work with like if a spouse or partner has stayed, that
Mhm.
they aren't deployed with their partner. Well, I've done a lot of counseling with them because I grew up in a military family. So like having like, oh, dad's okay. And now it's like a single parent home, even though you're not a single parent, right? So it's kind of this like,
Yeah.
weird transition. So working with the partner who has stayed is
Yes.
also been helpful too. 'Cause there can be a lot of stress and anxiety for that partner as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot relate personally. Within my family, we have had that. And yeah, your heart just break. It's such a sacrifice for
Yeah.
anyone who's doing that. And to be away from the family unit for
Mhm.
extended, I get whiny if my husband's gone for, a week. So
Yeah.
these people, it could be a year, months, and
Right. Yeah.
so much. Let's talk about it looks like you offer maybe some specific classes or
Mhm.
courses through Modern Wellness. So let's talk about the difference of that or how is that more geared towards other clinicians
Mhm.
outside of your practice or is it for your clients?
It's for clients and even non-clients. So even if someone wants to just do a premarital counseling course, but they don't want to do like actually like one-on-one with someone, they can join in and take this online course. So this is also
Okay.
helpful for people who are outside of the state of Texas.
Mhm.
And something that I also recommend to people who may call from another state, find us online and say, hey, we want to get some services from y'all, but we live in Tennessee or we live in, California. So I have recommended the online course because it is me kind of walking through a curriculum on what it has self-care, it has how to take care of yourself and your partner, and then it kind of expands into a family unit, a community unit. So that's kind of why I like that course because it is super inclusive as well. So that has been, it's more like just healthy coping skills, healthy relationship skills. So that's for people who are, yeah, non-clinicians, but for non-clients and
Gotcha.
non-clients.
Right.
And then there's a bundle, or I guess a bundle, I don't know, a bigger course, right? Where it kind of goes to like all these different pieces, but then there's also like smaller mini courses that only focus on conflict management or even for individuals like on only self-esteem. So it's helpful. They get to choose what focus they want to work on.
Yeah. No, that's great. And because it's more like a course and it's not
Hmm.
therapy, you're outside of the realms of the licensing and all of that. And
Hmm.
even kind of like preventative care, I would
Right.
think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it really is. And we have gotten really great feedback. Everyone, once they get done with the course, they're like, oh, that was super helpful. They get lifetime access to it. So I always recommend that they go back, a year or two
Yeah.
even later and do the worksheets again, just see how much they have grown individually or as a couple and see how things have changed. Because that's kind of the biggest thing that we see with couples, long-term relationships. It's like, hey, when you've been together for so many years and you forget to keep track, of each other, that's when things start to come up.
Right.
So,
Right.
mhm.
So do you run that as like if it's a course, is it like, oh, Tuesday evenings, all these people that have signed up joining in kind of like a group, and then you're almost teaching online? And then I assume there's homework and like surveys or things like that in between.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
gotcha. It's a self-paced course. Yeah, so it's something that it's already been pre-recorded and they will kind of buy the course and then there's worksheets and after every module to help kind of solidify the objective of that video that they just saw. So
Okay.
it's a guided course that they get to do on their own. They can, and it's broken up into really small videos. Like some of them are like 5 minutes. I think the longest one maybe 8 minutes.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean that they have to like, oh, we put the kids down to bed and now we're
Yeah.
gonna watch this like 3 hour video, right? So they can
Yeah.
like watch in little snippets, whatever is most convenient for them.
Okay. That's great. And then if they wanted more personal help, they could reach out to you for ongoing therapy if needed.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So in talking, this just has me thinking on the business side of that. And because we haven't talked as much on here about specific mini courses, did you have a whole team help you develop the videos and the modules and all of the technology behind that, or how did that look?
So, yes and no. My mom has a video, like she's a videographer and photographer. So thankfully
Okay.
she has all the equipment. I honestly just
Yeah.
use all of her stuff. And this was back in 2018 when when I did the videos. So the time I wasn't, I had just left my agency job. So I had a lot of time on my hands to just kind of focus in on that. So I kind of just like
Yeah.
did that before I started really focusing in on expanding my own practice. So a lot of it I did on my own. And then I just used like the resource that my mom had, like her equipment and her video editing software, because I knew exactly how I wanted it, like to
Mhm.
be. So I figured out, like, yeah, okay, I can edit, I can do this and upload that. So that was helpful. I also grew up with my mom doing like video editing and like, so like
Okay.
that wasn't anything like knowing what that was and how to record was like
Yeah.
easy for me, I guess, just
Right.
because was around it so much growing up. So yeah, so that was helpful. So yeah, so I did it kind of by myself with,
Yeah.
the resources that my mom had.
Yeah. No, that's amazing that you had that type of support that it's
Yeah.
just natural to you because you're used to
Mhm.
it. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so I love that. Very exciting. Well, let's just maybe talk a little bit about any clients or scenarios that you feel like you've seen a lot of success. Obviously, not talking about anyone's names or anything, but anything that you're really proud of in your practice in the last few years.
Yeah, I would have to say just the use of EFT with my couples. It really, one, helps ground me and makes me feel a little bit more in control. Okay, like I know when the couple starts arguing or they want to, they're really wanting to share their side of the story. I'm like, okay, I understand where this is coming from. So it really helps me be able to relate, or empathize, or kind of help them know, like, I understand, I get it. Right. I think that really helps them to know, okay, I can slow down myself. I can calm down because Priscilla knows where we're going. I think it's always helpful whenever I'm see people kind of bickering at each other and I'm like saying something to each of them, right, at the same time, and they're both kind of like nodding, right? They're both like, yes, yeah, like, yes, this applies to me while they're both saying that. So it's
Right.
always helpful to be able to apply those skills in those types of interventions so that way they know, like, oh, yeah, we are both on the same page, we're both in the same type of pain. That can start to help rebuild that attachment and that sense of security within the relationship. And it's been, I've had quite a few couples where we can successfully end therapy. And those are always great because of course, I've also had a couple or a few clients, right, where it just ends, right? You just don't hear from
Oh,
them or just,
yeah.
it's just like, okay, like, I hope everything's okay, right? So
Right.
that's always nice, when you get through the whole therapy treatment and, you come out the other end of like, hey, everything's good, we're back on the same page. Yes, we still fight, but at least we do that in a way that we can both understand and respect each other and understand like, oh yeah, these are just different points of view versus like you're out to get me and,
Right.
you just always want to win kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Good point you bring up about if people kind of fall off the wagon. How many times do you kind of reach out before you just kind of put your hands up and say, okay, they're clearly not
mhm,
wanting to do the work and we're not
mhm,
connecting. Um,
yeah.
how many times will you reach out?
Yeah, it depends on the last session. I always kind of think back of how the last session ends. Was it something that they said like, "Oh, I'll get back to you, and we're going on a trip," or
Yeah.
something's coming up where I'll then initiate, reaching out, versus if it just kind of blew up.
Yeah.
Because I have had some couples where I kind of had to like fire them in that sense, right? Because it's just like one, it's not a good fit for me for the type of therapy I'm doing, or they really are just using therapy as a way to win an argument, or it's really, really aggressive.
Yeah.
I have really, I think, like stricter boundaries when it comes to that, just because we're also virtual and online. So unlike in a in-person setting, not that you can really like enforce safety in person, but there's less of that, I guess. I feel sometimes depending on the couple if they're getting really heated and it's really, really hard for them. It's very noticeable that they have a hard time controlling words. Like, "Hey, you know what, maybe I need to make a referral elsewhere." So to go back to your question, right? Like I do normally reach out, say, hey, I haven't heard from you since our last session, which was, say on July 1st, and it is now July 8th. If I don't hear back from you by July 20th, I'll assume that we're ending counseling and this
Yeah.
is what this means for your file, but you can still continue services after that, or here's some referrals, right? So I kind of just like do a quick reaching out summary of like, you
Okay.
still need me, I'm here. If not, this
Right.
is what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
good to know. Yeah, and that would be when you were talking about people being super heated on the other side of the screen and the
Mhm.
tensions. That would be a lot. I remember I'm a counselor in a school, and I had a student when we were online was very distressed about something, and then they could not hear us, but we could see their distress. And it was so alarming because we could
Yeah.
not reach through and help.
Mhm.
And finally, the family intervened and whatever
Yeah.
because we were texting them on the side.
Yeah.
But it was so awful to like watch. It's like you're
Yeah.
watching a movie
Right.
derail and you can't help. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's a very yeah, it was a little traumatizing for me to think back on the
Yeah.
moments, which weren't even that long, but yeah,
Mhm.
it was tough. So
Right.
I think the boundaries are important. And, with marriage, it's such a one of the toughest, relationships. And I'm sure sometimes you have people come, maybe the one wants to come and the other is already over it. And,
Right.
you always think there's definitely people can repair, but some people
Mhm.
are already out the door. And it's
Right.
really a lot of wisdom needed in how much you can help or
Yeah.
how much of their own personal trauma they have that you're like,
Mhm.
actually, you need a lot of individual help for
Right.
things that you're dealing with. So, yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
We do always love to talk a little bit about kind of the tools or apps or whatever it is that helps you on the business side of your practice, or have you hired people to maintain that part of it? How does the business end look for you at this point?
So I did hire a business coach a couple of years ago. Actually, when I was branching out into a group practice,
Mhm.
I just wanted someone else by my side to help with
Yeah.
the organization and structure of everything. So she was great. She helped me kind of just like figure that out, kind of have like a, stands of operations kind of thing. So that way everyone kind of look at. So that was helpful. And we just use Google Drive, like the business Google Drive tools there to help. And then when it comes to, is that kind of what you meant? Like
Oh,
the,
yeah,
like, yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And we use Simple Practice for like our electronic health record. Has been helpful.
Mhm.
I do have an intake coordinator who helps manage, calls that are coming in. She's great at knowing how to, like, what questions to ask to assign them to the best clinician within our practice. And then for our online courses, we use Teachable. So that has been helpful too. It's just has been really simple for me to use. I know there's a ton of different like course platforms
Right.
out there that may be cheaper and more affordable, but I was like, you know what? This one was really easy for me to use. I'm just gonna stick with it.
Yeah.
So that has been nice to utilize. And I have always been like a really big geek about like spreadsheets and Excel. So everything when our KPIs and how we manage finances and expenses, I have a spreadsheet for, and it's all kind of like laid out. So that has been
Yeah.
really helpful for me to see on the back end of, okay, like projections or things that we need to be doing, or how are we doing on calls that have come in, and what does that conversion look like, and how many sessions have we had, and that way we can kind of just keep track of. Because I think that was something too that my business coach helped me figure out is, hey, if you're putting money into, say an intake coordinator, how do you know that they're doing, their job well? Or, a
Mhm.
clinician, how do you know that they're doing their job well? If you're running so many clients, you need to make sure that they're also maintaining their caseload. And again, that
Yeah.
goes back to quality of care. And if you see clients just kind of dipping out, like after the second session, what's happening, right? So,
Right.
so that has been helpful too.
Good. Yeah, the data is always key, even in the mental
Yeah.
health world where data is, it's always a little gray with the emotions
Yeah.
and everything, but those things, yeah, are really important to chart. And I love that you got the help of a business coach. And
Mhm.
I'm sure having an intake coordinator is such a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
That one that knows all of you well in the practice, and then being able to pair people. I'm sure that's a lot of time saver for you. And also
Yeah.
thinking when you're talking about teachable that, maybe it costs a little more, but like time is huge even for me as
Mhm.
well. So even
Yeah.
things paying more for things, but to not if something is easy to use, there's a lot of value there. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, my intake coordinator has been a lifesaver. When I went on maternity leave, I called her up and I was like, I went into like preterm labor, like please handle everything, and she did.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
was
did
great.
see that reminds you, I did see on your website that you had twins just in the
Yeah.
last year or two.
Here, yeah, they're 1-year-old twins right now, and it's a lot of fun.
Yes. We have not in my family, but a niece and nephew. And yeah, twins, I think they're so fun. I think there's
Yeah.
way more twins than we ever knew, but when people are adults, you don't know they're a twin unless you get
Right.
involved more with them.
Yeah.
But when they're little, everyone sees it.
Yeah. Been a lot
Hey,
of fun.
congrats. Yeah.
Thank you.
And definitely a time of needing more help for sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I know. I'm so happy that I put in all that work when I did because by the time we decided to family plan and then I had my twins, like I was able to leave comfortably for that time period and
Yeah.
know that everything was going to be okay.
Yeah. Um, Would you well, all of this has been really good. I was wondering if there was just anything else that you felt like we didn't cover or anything about your practice you want people to know, or even any advice for someone who is newer to this field.
Yeah, I think a big thing if you're gonna go into private practice or starting, already in private practice, is just doing something that matches you. I think there's so many great examples out there, so many people who are already, doing so well. I think I fell into this too. It's like, oh, what can I do like that's like them, or what can I do that's like them? And I really had to just do something that matched me. What did I like to do? What really, teaching was something that I always really enjoyed and sharing information. So when I was like, how can I do that more efficiently? Like, yeah, let's do the online course. Like that makes sense for me. I'm getting more clients. Like, how can I have that work for me? Like, yeah, let me bring on another clinician. So it was something of like what matched with aligned with my life
Mhm.
versus like, how can I be like other people?
Right.
And I think that is like once I figured that out, I felt more like at peace and not so like anxiety driven. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm not like I was constantly comparing myself to their businesses or other successful practitioner owners. And
Mhm.
um, I think once I was able to kind of turn that off, I was like, okay, this makes sense now. So I think at the beginning, it's a lot of information at any stage you're in. So I think that was a big thing for me. And obviously getting a business coach, something that she helped also solidify, like, kind of
Yeah.
had to put these blinders on and just focus in on what you want to focus in on.
Right.
So versus chasing all the shiny objects. So
Yeah. That's a good phrase, chasing the shiny objects. No, that's great, and be at peace about what you're doing, and I think it's really cool. I'm sure, you said you love teaching, but seeing the struggles that so many people have and then at least providing something in your online courses to help people prevent themselves from getting there, I think is really
Mhm.
great that, maybe those people that you helped that needed the intense therapy could say to someone younger, "Hey, we wish we had done this." So
Mhm.
it kind of comes full circle, and I really like
Yeah.
you were able to produce those, and all along that your mom had you prepped on the
Yeah.
technology end. So very cool.
Yeah.
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 All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today and all of your insights and about your practice and where it's come. It's been really great to hear. So we appreciate you sharing with us.
Yes, thank you so much, Becky, for having me. It's been such a pleasure and being able to share. And I love listening to the podcast too. Having a lot of different guests on there has been helpful for me as well. So, if anyone's listening, definitely keep on listening to the podcast.
All right, great. Yeah, I love learning from all the people, and it's great when the different guests can hear things from each other as well. So thank you so much. To our listeners of Mastering Counseling, we're so glad that you are part of this show today with Priscilla, and please leave us more questions and comments and more reviews. Till we talk again, have a wonderful day.